At our wedding rehearsal, my fiancée kissed my brother and said, "The wedding's already paid for. I'm marrying Robert." The worst part? My whole family agreed. So I let them. Then the next morning, the venue called. Who canceled the entire event? My name is Dylan Hart, and 3 days before my wedding, I learned that love doesn't die with a knife in the back. It dies in a room full of people pretending nothing happened. Sienna and I had been together for almost 5 years. We met at a small marketing firm where I was a junior designer and she worked as a client relations coordinator. She was bright, confident, and terrifyingly organized, the kind of woman who made everyone else seem like they were standing still. I thought we balanced each other perfectly. I was steady. She was ambition wrapped in silk. My brother Robert, on the other hand, was everything I wasn't. Loud, spontaneous, the type of guy who could talk his way into a rooftop bar with no reservation and walk out with everyone's attention. Growing up, my parents adored him. They called him the spark of the family. I was the one who kept the books balanced. It never bothered me, not until that night. The rehearsal was at the Glasswood Terrace, a glass-paneled venue overlooking the river. It was expensive, maybe too expensive, but Sienna had insisted it was the only place that felt right. I paid most of the bill with my savings. My parents helped with the deposit, and Sienna covered the flowers. Everyone seemed happy. At least, that's what I believed. The night of the rehearsal, the sky looked painted, pink and violet streaks across the river. The staff moved around like dancers, adjusting flowers, setting candles. My mother was laughing with Sienna's parents. My father was already halfway through his second drink, and Robert, of course, arrived fashionably late, strolling in with that effortless grin that always got him forgiven. We went through the motions, the aisle walk, the cue for the music, the positioning for vows. The air was filled with that particular tension weddings carry, nerves mixed with excitement. Sienna looked radiant, almost glowing, and she gave me that familiar smile that said, "We're almost there." When the pastor signaled for us to practice the ring exchange, I reached for her hand. But before I could speak, she laughed at something Robert whispered. I didn't catch what it was, but everyone around chuckled, everyone except me. Robert leaned in close, too close, brushing something off her shoulder. It might have looked harmless, if not for the way she tilted her head, eyes soft, a little too familiar. Then she kissed him. It wasn't long, barely a second, but it was enough to silence a room of 20 people. I thought my eyes were playing tricks. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe she slipped. My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father set down his drink. And then Sienna said, clearly, almost gently, "The wedding's already paid for. I'm marrying Robert." The words didn't hit me all at once. It was like falling through water. You don't feel the ground until you've already hit it. No one moved. Then, unbelievably, my father clapped Robert on the back and muttered something about finally doing what's right. My mother nodded, as if she'd expected this. My uncle actually laughed, asking if this meant the caterer should double-check the name cards. I waited for someone, anyone, to look at me, but no one did. Sienna stood there with that same calm expression, like this was business as usual. Her parents whispered among themselves, but didn't seem surprised. Robert had that smug, apologetic look he always wore when he accidentally took what was mine, the last slice of cake, the car, the family's attention. Only this time, it was my future. When I finally spoke, my voice barely sounded human. I asked if this was a joke. My father shook his head. "Don't make a scene, Dylan," he said. "Love finds its way." My hands went numb. I turned to Sienna, searching for something, regret, fear, even guilt. Instead, she just said, "You've been good to me, but I need someone who matches me. Robert understands me better." I don't remember leaving the room. I just remember the cold air outside hitting my face like a slap. I walked to the parking lot and sat in my car, staring at the reflection of the venue lights in the river. For an hour, maybe two, I watched them move around inside, heard muffled laughter through the glass. They stayed to rework the schedule, apparently without me. I didn't drive home right away. I parked by the water until long after midnight. My phone buzzed, messages from Sienna's bridesmaids, my mom, even Robert, saying we should talk when things cool down. None of them apologized. None even admitted it was wrong. Then, around 12:30 a.m., an email came in from the venue coordinator, Marcia Lowe. It was a routine message confirming the final payment for the wedding, the last installment I'd made 2 days ago. "Congratulations," it said. "Everything is ready for Saturday." I stared at the email for a long time. That's when something shifted in me. I realized that every deposit, every vendor contract, every service booked was in my name. The venue, the photographer, the caterers, even the flower arrangements, all tied to my account. I had paid for everything. And in that moment, the humiliation that had been choking me turned into something sharper. A strange calm spread through me. If they wanted the wedding so badly, If my whole family agreed it was meant to be, then fine. They could have it. But they would have exactly what they deserved. When I finally drove home, I didn't cry or yell. I didn't throw things or call anyone. I just opened my laptop and pulled up every invoice, every signed document. I checked the cancellation policies, refund clauses, event access permissions. Everything led back to me. Sienna had chosen to betray me publicly, but she'd forgotten who actually owned the stage she stood on. I sat there until dawn, reviewing every detail. The Glasswood Terrace would open at 10 a.m. the next morning. I made a note to call Marcia first thing. I didn't have a plan yet, not exactly. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't going to end quietly. The next morning, my mother left me a voicemail. Her tone was detached, almost cheerful. She said it would be less awkward for everyone if I didn't come to the actual ceremony, but that I should keep things civil. Then she added, Sienna's family is still willing to let you attend as a guest if you want closure. Closure. They expected me to sit there and watch my fiancé marry my brother under an arch I paid for, in a suit I had tailored for that very day. My own family wanted me to smile through it, clap at the end, and call it maturity. I made myself breakfast, ate slowly, and replayed that voicemail twice. Then I opened my laptop again and logged into the vendor portal for Glasswood Terrace. The system allowed the client to make modifications until 48 hours before the event. A simple password reset gave me access to everything. By noon, I had control over the decor, the catering, the music, every detail Sienna had planned. And by the time the sun went down, I already knew what kind of wedding they would be walking into. Not a celebration, a mirror, one that would show everyone exactly who they really were. When I woke up that morning, everything felt strangely still. The sun was cutting through the blinds, and for a few seconds, I almost forgot the rehearsal had happened. Then my phone buzzed, 50 unread messages, mostly from family. My mother wanted to confirm small changes to the program. My father was asking if I could forward the vendor receipts to Robert. And Sienna hadn't written a single word. She didn't need to. Her social media had said enough. I opened her latest post, a mirror selfie in her rehearsal dress, captioned, "Some things just fall into place when you stop resisting." My brother had commented a single heart emoji underneath. They were broadcasting it like a love story, as if betrayal was something worth posting. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to stop them. I was going to let them have their wedding. But I was going to make sure it reflected the truth of what they'd built, something hollow, tasteless, and doomed to collapse under its own performance. The first step was practical. The wedding contract at the Glasswood Terrace was under my name. All payments, all permissions, everything linked to my account. So I called the venue's coordinator, Marcia Lowe. She remembered me instantly. Her voice was bright, professional, the kind of person who spoke in exclamation marks. I told her I wanted to make some last-minute design updates. She checked the system and confirmed I still had full control. I asked what could be changed within 48 hours. She said, flowers, colors, playlist, stage lighting, even the dessert selection. Perfect. I spent the next 2 hours rewriting the entire theme. The white roses Sienna had ordered were replaced with deep violet lilies. The gold tablecloths changed to gray. The champagne tower she'd been obsessed with was removed completely. The dessert table, gone. Instead, I requested black and white cupcakes with no frosting and instructed the staff to play a slow, somber instrumental version of Can't Help Falling in Love when the bride walked down the aisle. No one questioned me. I was still the client. Then I checked the catering order: Wagyu steak, lobster, imported wine, all Sienna's preferences. I switched it to roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and a budget red wine. I didn't do it to be cruel. I just wanted everything to look exactly as cheap as their love was. After that, I called the photographer, a man named Joel. He'd been paid in full by me. I told him there'd been a change of lead couple, and he immediately asked if I still wanted him to shoot. I said yes, but with one adjustment: candid photos only. No post shots. He laughed, said he loved raw moments, and confirmed. By noon, the entire wedding had been reprogrammed. The same place, the same date, but it would be nothing like what they imagined. At 1 p.m., Robert texted. He wrote, "Bro, no hard feelings, right? We didn't plan for this to happen, but you've always been understanding. Let's keep things peaceful, yeah?" I stared at the message for a while, then locked my phone. Peaceful. That was his word for stealing my fiancé with my family's approval. My father called next. He said the family didn't want drama and that I should think about how to move forward maturely. He talked about how Robert was ready for the responsibility and how love can't be forced. His voice carried that same tone I'd heard my whole life. The one that said, "Robert's special. You're lucky just to be in the room." I let him talk until he ran out of words. Then I hung up without saying anything. That evening, I went to the venue under the pretense of confirming the music arrangements. Marcia was there, still in her work uniform, clipboard in hand. When she saw me, she smiled nervously. She'd probably sensed the tension in my voice earlier. I asked her to walk me through the setup. Everything was spotless. The white chairs lined perfectly, the stage set, candles placed by the river window. It looked beautiful, almost too beautiful. I stood there, watching the reflection of the river lights ripple across the glass, and felt an odd sense of possession. Not because I wanted it back, but because I realized I didn't need it anymore. Sienna's dream wedding belonged to me, legally and financially. Every flower, every glass, every inch of that venue had my name attached to it. They could walk in pretending it was theirs, but the truth was, they'd built their fairy tale on ground they didn't own. Before leaving, I gave Marcia one final instruction, that only I could authorize any access to the event file. She looked hesitant but agreed after I showed proof of payment and identification. When I signed the form, it hit me how easy it was to control everything without shouting or breaking anything. Back home, I sat at my desk and started sketching the timeline of how the next day would unfold. I wanted them to walk in believing it was still their perfect day. I wanted every illusion to stay intact, until the very last second. But as I planned, a thought struck me. What if they had tried to move the contracts without telling me? I logged into my email, scrolled through, and sure enough, there were several unread messages from the venue and vendors. Some were about confirming details as requested by the family. They had been trying to take ownership behind my back. The good thing? None of them had succeeded. The system required my electronic signature for any transfer, and I changed my password before they even attempted it. They must have realized it by now. I could almost picture them scrambling, making calls, arguing. By late evening, curiosity got the better of me. I drove to Robert's apartment complex. His car was in the lot. From the window, I could see movement, Sienna's silhouette pacing, Robert talking animatedly, both of them agitated. It wasn't happiness. It was panic. They probably realized they didn't have full control over anything. I parked across the street, turned off the engine, and just watched. They were arguing, gesturing wildly, and at one point, Robert slammed a glass against the sink. It shattered, and Sienna stormed into another room. I didn't feel vindicated, just cold, detached, like watching a storm destroy a house I'd already moved out of. Then my phone buzzed. An email from Marcia, timestamp 9:47 p.m. She wrote, "Hi Dylan, just confirming that all event changes have been locked as per your latest authorization. If anyone else contacts us requesting alterations, we'll require your written consent." That was it. Control was officially mine. I slept that night without guilt. The next morning, I woke to a flood of new messages. My mom sent a long paragraph about how I should move on gracefully and let love lead. My father wrote that I shouldn't embarrass the family. Robert texted another apology, this one ending with, "You're better off without her, man." Sienna didn't text me. Instead, she posted another photo, her engagement ring, my engagement ring, captioned, "Tomorrow begins forever." I smiled at the irony. Tomorrow would begin something, all right. At 10 a.m., I called Marcia one last time. I told her to proceed with the setup exactly as planned. She asked if I'd be attending. I said I wouldn't, not officially, but I'd be nearby. When I hung up, I checked my calendar. Everything was set for Saturday, 4 p.m. The guests would arrive, the staff would welcome them, and my family would sit proudly in the front rows, waiting for the ceremony. And right before the music began, something would happen that none of them could undo. Because I hadn't canceled the wedding yet. But I was about to make sure no one could finish it either. Saturday morning came with a sharp chill in the air. I didn't set an alarm, but my body woke up before sunrise. The first thing I heard was my phone buzzing. A dozen missed calls from my mother, 2 from my father, 1 from Robert, and 3 from an unknown number I later learned was the venue. I sat up slowly, feeling the weight of what the day represented. It was supposed to be my wedding day. The date engraved on the invitations, printed on napkins, etched into glass favors. For months, I had imagined waking up nervous but excited. Instead, I felt detached, like I was watching my own life happen through a screen. I brewed coffee and opened my laptop. The glasswood terrace portal still showed my name at the top, client, Dylan Hart. Every service was listed as confirmed. Everything was still under my control, or so I thought. At 8:03 a.m., I received an email notification from Marcia, urgent, who canceled the entire event. I froze. The email chain below her showed a digital cancellation request submitted at 7:21 a.m., signed under secondary authorized party, Linda Hart, my mother. She'd used her old login credentials from when she'd helped process the initial down payment months ago. I hadn't realized the system had saved her access. She'd canceled everything. The venue, catering, flowers, decorations. Every vendor had received automatic refunds. The entire event was officially null. The payment reversal was already processing back to my card. It was the one move I hadn't anticipated. Marcia called seconds later, her voice shaky. She asked if I wanted to reinstate the booking. I told her no, not anymore. I understood immediately what had happened. They must have realized they had no legal ownership of the event, panicked, and tried to seize control by removing me from the equation altogether. But in doing so, they'd erased everything. By the time I hung up, chaos had already begun spreading. Robert called next. His voice was low, angry. He said the venue had called him, asking for confirmation, and that they'd shown up that morning to locked gates and no staff. He accused me of sabotaging the wedding. I reminded him calmly that the only person who could have canceled it with authorization was our mother. He didn't believe me. I forwarded him the email chain. A minute later, I heard the silence on the line, that stunned, speechless quiet when realization hits. Then he hung up. Within an hour, the calls multiplied. The hotel where most guests were staying was swarmed with confusion. People were checking out, others were demanding explanations. Apparently, half the guests had already started drinking in the lounge by 10 a.m. and were venting to the staff about the canceled ceremony. I decided to see it myself. By 11:30, I was at the Riverside Grand Hotel, where Sienna's bridal party had booked their suites. The place looked like a disaster zone. White dresses wrinkled, makeup artists packing up, bridesmaids pacing the lobby. My aunt sat in a corner with her phone pressed to her ear, whispering into it like she was discussing a crime. And there they were. Sienna stood near the window, in her gown, pale satin, embroidered sleeves, pearls scattered across the bodice. Her veil was pinned but slightly crooked, and her mascara had started to run. Robert was beside her, in his tuxedo, tie loosened, face flushed. My father was trying to calm them down, repeating, "We'll fix it, we'll fix it." When Sienna saw me walk in, her expression twisted. It wasn't guilt. It was fury, the kind of anger people have when their plan falls apart and they need someone to blame. She stormed toward me, hissing something I couldn't make out. Robert followed, demanding I fix what I'd done. I told them plainly that I hadn't canceled anything. The contract was canceled by the secondary account holder, my mother. I showed them the proof. The email thread was right there, time-stamped. Everyone went quiet. My mother looked pale. She said she thought she was helping because she didn't want things to get messy. Robert snapped at her, saying she'd just destroyed everything. Sienna turned on her heel, shouting that this wasn't her problem and that I was enjoying this. She was half right. The guests began leaving one by one. Some were whispering, others filming on their phones. A few laughed, actually laughed, saying things like, "You can't make this stuff up." One guy even asked if this was a prank wedding for YouTube. Within an hour, half the bridal party had vanished. The florist arrived briefly, unaware of the cancellation, and ended up hauling crates of lilies back to her van. The band showed up too, only to learn they wouldn't be performing. They argued with the hotel manager about their payment before storming off. By mid-afternoon, the hotel lobby was a battlefield of whispers and embarrassment. Sienna's father demanded to know who would compensate for the lost event. My father deflected, saying it wasn't his fault. My mother sat in a chair, staring at her phone, pretending she hadn't detonated the entire day. I should have felt satisfied. But standing there, watching the entire farce collapse, I realized it wasn't satisfaction, it was closure. Quiet, total closure. The only thing I said before walking out was, "Now everyone knows what kind of love this was." When I stepped outside, the air was thick and gray, the sky heavy with rain. I walked toward my car as the first drops fell. Behind me, I could hear shouting, glass breaking, someone must have thrown something. I didn't look back. By the time I reached my apartment, social media was already on fire. Videos had surfaced of the meltdown. Guests had posted snippets, Sienna crying in the lobby, Robert arguing with staff, my father yelling about the refund. A local gossip page had even uploaded a clip titled, "Canceled Wedding Drama at the Grand." I didn't post anything. I didn't comment. I didn't send the video to anyone. I didn't have to. The story told itself. That evening, the refund from Glasswood Terrace hit my account, nearly $30,000. I stared at the notification for a while. That money had started as hope, turned into betrayal, and ended as poetic symmetry. Marcia called again around 7 p.m. She apologized for the chaos, said she'd never seen anything like it. I told her not to worry. She sounded surprised by how calm I was. Before hanging up, she said something that stuck with me. "You know, Mr. Hart, it's rare for someone to get their money and their peace back on the same day." I laughed, not the bitter kind, just a quiet one that comes when you finally understand how ridiculous everything was. Later that night, I scrolled through the new comments on Sienna's page. She'd turned them off. Robert's profile had gone private. My parents hadn't posted anything, but my aunt uploaded a vague quote about truth revealing itself in time. The entire family was pretending to be blindsided, but I knew better. They'd supported the betrayal until it became inconvenient. By midnight, I'd packed a small bag. I didn't know where I was going yet, just that I wasn't staying there anymore. Before leaving, I opened one last message from Marcia confirming that Glasswood Terrace had blacklisted the Hart family from future bookings due to contract interference. I smiled faintly. That meant they couldn't use the venue even if they tried to rebook. I shut off the lights, grabbed my jacket, and walked out. Outside, the rain had stopped. The streets were empty, wet under the lamplight. I stood there for a long minute, breathing in the cold air, realizing something I hadn't felt in months. Freedom. Not revenge. Not victory. Just absence. Absence of noise, of manipulation, of pretending everything was fine. The wedding hadn't been ruined by me. It had been ruined by exactly the kind of people it was meant for. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like enough. In the days after the canceled wedding, my phone turned into a battlefield of missed calls, voicemails, and unread texts. Everyone wanted to control the narrative. My mother claimed she had panicked and only canceled the event because she didn't want it to get out of hand. Robert tried to say I'd tricked everyone, and that it was technically sabotage. Sienna posted a long message on her private page about betrayal and being used. It was funny, in a way. They'd stolen my fiancé, tried to erase me from my own life. And when everything fell apart, they all pointed fingers in every direction but their own. I didn't answer any of them. I rented a small place 2 towns over. A studio with peeling wallpaper, no furniture except a mattress and a coffee table I found on the curb. I didn't care. For the first time in years, the silence around me wasn't hostile. It was peace. But peace didn't mean forgetting. About a week later, the video of the canceled wedding hit national gossip sites. Someone from the hotel staff had uploaded security footage to a forum. The moment Sienna screamed at Robert, the guests arguing, the bridesmaids crying in the background. It went viral overnight. I watched it once. Just once. It was strange to see them from the outside. 2 people who had destroyed everything trying to hold together a fantasy in front of strangers. The comments were brutal. People dissected every frame, turned it into a meme, a cautionary tale. There were threads titled, "He Dodged a Bullet," and "The Brother and Bride Saga." I didn't enjoy the mockery, but I won't lie. It felt like the world was handing me back my dignity in public view. By the end of that week, Sienna deleted all her accounts. Robert disappeared offline too. My parents, though, weren't done. One night, around 9 p.m., I got a knock on my door. When I opened it, my father was standing there in his coat, holding a bottle of whiskey. He looked smaller than I remembered, older somehow. He asked if we could talk. Against my better judgment, I let him in. He sat on the floor beside the coffee table, poured himself a drink, and started talking without looking at me. He said they'd messed up, that they'd been so blinded by appearances they forgot about loyalty. He admitted they had all known about Sienna and Robert weeks before the rehearsal. That hit harder than I expected. Weeks, not days. Apparently, it started with emotional closeness, the kind of excuse people use when they're trying to clean up rot. My mother had found out and convinced herself it was meant to be. She thought I'd find someone else eventually. They'd all decided to go along with it because it seemed less painful than a scandal. I sat there listening, realizing how many quiet betrayals had stacked up behind my back while I'd been busy paying invoices for their fairy tale. When he finished, I asked him why he was telling me now. He said guilt was killing him. Then he tried to hand me the whiskey bottle. I told him to leave it. Before he left, he said, "You're better than all of us, Dylan. You always were. We just didn't want to admit it." It wasn't an apology. It was a confession. And it was the closest I was ever going to get. After that night, I stopped checking their calls. They still reached out occasionally, trying to patch things up, but every message carried that same undertone of self-preservation. They weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry they got caught. A few months passed. I got a new job as a logistics coordinator for an event firm. Ironically, the same kind of company that handled weddings and galas. The first time I walked into a new venue, I felt a strange déjà vu, but this time I was the one setting the rules. I was good at it. Too good, maybe. Within 6 months, I was managing my own client list. I understood how people thought under pressure, how small cracks became disasters. Every spreadsheet I touched was a reminder of how easily illusion collapses when no one pays attention to the details. Then, one day, an email landed in my inbox. The sender's name made me pause. Marcia Lowe, the coordinator from Glasswood Terrace. She'd seen the viral videos, of course. Everyone in the industry had. But she wasn't writing about that. She wanted to offer me a job. Apparently, after the Hart family incident, she'd left the venue and started her own consultancy. She needed someone who understood both the logistics and the psychology of clients, someone who could prevent disasters before they began. I accepted. Working with Marcia was the first time I'd felt in control again, not just of events, but of myself. We built a strong business together. I handled contracts, timelines, vendor coordination. She handled design and presentation. Within a year, we were booking clients across the state. I didn't think about Sienna or Robert much anymore. Occasionally, I'd hear bits through mutual acquaintances. Robert had lost his job not long after the wedding fallout. His company had been tagged in one of the viral videos, and their PR department wanted to distance themselves. Sienna tried to restart her career in marketing, but her reputation followed her everywhere. People whispered about them at every industry event. They were the living embodiment of a story no one wanted to repeat. Then one evening, almost a year later, I was closing up the office when Marcia walked in with a strange look on her face. She handed me a business card, a client inquiry for a mid-size event. When I read the name, I felt my stomach tighten. Sienna Alcott. She had booked a consultation through our website. She didn't realize who owned the firm. Marcia waited for my reaction. I asked her to schedule the meeting. A week later, Sienna walked into our office, looking like a ghost of herself. She was thinner, her hair shorter, her confidence gone. She didn't recognize me at first. I'd changed my look since then. She started talking nervously about organizing a small anniversary dinner. Her voice cracked halfway through the pitch. I let her talk for a full 10 minutes before saying her name. She froze. Her eyes darted up, and for the first time since the day she betrayed me, I saw fear. She whispered, "You run this place?" I nodded. Then I slid the contract across the table, with one clause highlighted. Client authorizes non-refundable payment upon booking. She signed without reading. Desperation makes people careless. When she handed the paper back, I leaned forward and said quietly, "You finally paid for something yourself." She didn't respond. She just sat there, trembling, realizing exactly what I meant. 2 weeks later, her event was canceled. She tried to call, to demand a refund, but the clause she'd signed was airtight. The money was gone. I didn't keep it. I donated it anonymously to a scholarship fund for small business students, people trying to build something real. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Revenge wasn't fire or chaos. It was precision. It was taking back the parts of yourself they thought they'd broken. Months later, Marcia and I expanded the business again. We opened a second office by the river, the same river that had reflected the lights from my ruined rehearsal. One evening, as I locked up, I caught my reflection in the glass. For a brief second, I saw the version of myself who had sat in his car that night, staring at the water, too shocked to breathe. Then I blinked, and he was gone. I had built something from the ashes they left me. Something no one could take this time. And if anyone asked what happened to the wedding that never was, I'd just tell them. It taught me the most valuable rule in event planning and in life. Never let someone else write the invitation to your own future.